Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax so we can chat about what is happening up in the sky above us. I am so excited, actually, having come off the high yesterday of my Astro Design 2025 webinar, because there was so much to share and it was fantastic. I think that will be a webinar for the books, right? I think 2025 is going to be a year for the books. And yet, it was so much fun putting all that together. It was a lot of work putting it all together, but still, such a great time. And here we are now in this space where we're about to end the autumn season from the northern hemisphere and enter into winter solstice. And I've drawn up a chart for the winter solstice, and I'm dipping my toe, if you will, into doing a bit of mundane astrology. Mundane astrology is when you draw up a chart for a solstice or an equinox, an Aries ingress, a chart for a nation, a leader of a nation is really not necessarily a mundane chart, but an event, that type of thing. And you get a peek at what the potential is as an outcome for that event. When we draw one up for a season, we get to see what pieces are on the chessboard for the season. So for the next 3 months. And in the case of an Aries ingress chart, which means when we get to the astrological new year, that's really a time where we can see ahead for the whole next um, year, the astrological year. And we did that, of course, yesterday. We looked ahead at what's coming for the astrological year. And today, I am going to take a look at what this solstice chart looks like. And imagine my surprise when I pulled that chart up this morning, and it was in some ways mirroring the Aries ingress chart. And I mean, I don't even know what the odds would be of that. Um, and I'm really only going to talk about the sun, which is the leader of a nation, and the moon, which are the people of the nation, and get an idea of what that's all about. And when we do it this way, we really get this view of what's going on, sort of from maybe the more unconscious aspects of what's going on, right? Not just in your face, these are your personality points, because they're not personality points. Right now they're representations of people or an institution. And it's so interesting to see how that plays out. So we're going to talk about that today. And then as well, um, that we have started reimagining the zodiac, and I put that sort of on the shelf for a bit while I was working out the astrology of 2025. Um, but here we are. Tomorrow we enter into Capricorn, newly named Capricornia, and reimagined as the feminine sign that she is. And what would that mean? And also reimagining then the role of Saturn as the ruler of the sign Capricorn and or Capricornia. And maybe we have to call her now Saturnia if we choose to keep Saturn as the ruler there. So we're going to run that down and talk about how all of that plays out. So I do have quite a bit to share with you. And as you all know, this would typically be the week that we have Pia and Cullen with us, but they were unable to make it this morning. So you got me. You got me instead. And they will be with us, of course, next month. Let's see, it looks like it would be the 17th of January. So they will return, just not today. All right. Good morning to all of you who are checking in with me. I saw Diana S. Good morning to you. And Tamra Hawk. Good morning, Tom. Hello. And TD Hawk says, love happy solstice. SOUL stis. And Terry, good morning. And Teddy, good morning. And Patty, Tina Wildenauer, good morning. I almost said good mothering. That would have worked too. TD Hawk have my class at 11:30 again today, so again, we'll need to tune in later. Not a problem. You can come and go at will. There's always the recording on YouTube or on Facebook. Either place you can access the recording. So, what is the winter solstice? Well, we know it as the time in the northern hemisphere when it goes into the winter season. But from an astrological point of view, the winter solstice occurs when the sun moves to 0 degrees of Capricorn. I just saw a ghost in my room. Terry, there's a ghost in our room. Oh my God. Okay. Um, that blows me away. He saw a ghost the other night, and then I just saw one walk from the door out the window. Okay. Well, that's a little unnerving. Um, but not surprising on a solstice, right? So when we set a chart for a seasonal ingress, we are really looking at the chart of a nation. And I live in the USA, so the chart is set for the USA. But you can also see these as bigger themes that actually are, worldwide, just maybe a little different focus in each other country based on that country's birth chart. So when we're looking at this, it's so funny because in the Aries chart for the year, the astrological new year, the sun, which represents the leader of a country, is in the third house. And at that point, it would be the third house Aries. But in this chart today, it is also in the third house. And this time, that third house is in Capricorn. So the same issues that pop up in this season around communication, around transportation, the media, the internet, anything to do with communication and third house issues will also be present in the beginning of the new year. The new year, not calendar new year, as astrological new year. So what does that mean, right? I was really like flabbergasted by that. And it's not just the sun. The moon in Virgo at the solstice is also in the same house that it's in, the 11th house, in the Aries ingress chart. And the moon is always the representation of the people, you and I, right? All of us. And our mood, our aspirations and hopes and goals and what are we feeling? And that 11th house is a house of community. It is a house of hopes and dreams and wishes and aspirations. And it seems to me, if we start to break this down, and I'm going to start with the moon rather than the sun, it seems to me that the moon in the 11th house is really that call that we see with Pluto and Aquarius to come together in community, to find our peoples, right? To find our group, to find our community or tribe, if you will, that we belong to. And as well, because the moon in the solstice chart is in Virgo, it feels like the people have this aspiration or hope that this country, because I've made this and set this for Washington, D.C., are going to get to work, right? The government is going to get to work, is going to get organized and start doing the practical day-to-day work of governing and of putting things together and of listening to the people and working for the people instead of working for themselves, which, as we all know, politicians forever, it seems like, have been very much more self-interested, and they're lining their own pockets rather than really doing the work for the people. Now, that's not all of them, hands down. Many of them are out there and very much humanitarian and altruistic. But this seems to have a feeling that the people have an expectation beginning with the sun in Capricorn, that this is going to be the way it is. It's a really positive thing, I think. The moon, is in Mercury territory during this time. So I feel like it's a time for people to raise their voices, right? That, that grassroots movements, which you've heard me use that term before as something that will become more prominent as time goes on. Well, here we see it in the solstice chart, this potential for that to be the case. And as I said yesterday during the webinar, the Aries ingress chart is actually um, good for a whole year, right? That is the year chart. So it looks like this will be a theme for a very long time, not just the calendar year, but this season and then the whole of the astrological chart, which would be March to March of 2026. And interesting to see where it would take us after that. So it really bears, sort of the resemblance to Pluto in Aquarius about people taking their power back, about, groups of people that can do more good when they band together, right? Coming together for a common cause, coming together for a purpose, and finding the people that are your people becomes the most important thing. Who do you belong with? And some of you may already be part of groups and so forth that maybe you're just feeling, I'm not sure that I resonate with these people anymore, or that I don't resonate with that energy anymore. So it might be that people are realigning themselves with the groups, with the friends, with the community that really resonates with their hearts, right? With their hearts from this position of health and well being. This is the moon in Virgo. And what's good for your well being is to be around people that resonate with you, right? To find your tribe. And this is anti isolationist. Right? This is you being an individual that is participating as a part of a group. It's very interesting to see this because, at least in this country, we seem to have this idea of being the lone wolf, right? Or mavericks, and we're, just, out there alone doing what we do, individuals. We really value our individualism here in this nation and other nations around the world too. So, but because I'm talking about this chart. So it makes sense then that what we're being asked to do, or what we are hoping to achieve as people in this particular season, is to find our community and participate in that community by adding our individual voice to the group. Makes sense, right? And in that, of course, it doesn't specify that it has to be a political group or a spiritual group or anything. It could be, participating in an art group. It doesn't matter, an educational group. It is just a good time for us to find those people that we resonate with, align ourselves with that group, and participate at the level of our individual genius, if you will, to move forward through the year. Now, wherever it is then that you have Virgo in your own chart is where the moon is, right? The moon actually moves in there late this evening. Or was it late last evening? It was late last evening. So today the moon is in Virgo, and then tomorrow at the solstice, the moon is in Virgo. So look to where Virgo is in your natal chart. Here's the symbol for Virgo. Let me show it to you. Looks just like this, right? Kind of like an M with an arm coming around. And you see here the moon. This is the solstice chart. So the moon will be at 13 degrees during the solstice. But right now the moon is sitting, let's see, because I know I drew that chart too. The moon is sitting at 3 degrees of Virgo. So take a look at that part of your life, right? Where is that energy? I know for Tom, that puts it in your first house. Who else do I know off the top of my head? In my own chart, it puts it in the third. No, is Virgo in my Virgo? Oh my God, why is my brain dead? Virgo is in my third house of my chart. And whatever the house is that the moon is in, this is also a focus for you for the next 3 months, because that's where the moon is during the solstice. All right. Am I confusing anybody? Has anybody got questions? Good morning, Joan Durchie. Hello, Corey, Colleen. Good to have you with us. Corey says, is there a way to purchase the webinar from yesterday? Yes, absolutely. I was able to get the recording downloaded and prepared yesterday. Today, I will load it up into the course platform. And if you purchase that, even now, you will still be able to have access to that. So you'll see it. I'm going to have to move it around to be on my homepage and so forth. But yes, absolutely. And then once you have access to that recording, you'll also have access to the slides and to an audio only. And you can come back to that as often as you want. It doesn't go away. Asa, good morning to you. My 12th house sun is very nervous about that. Don't be nervous. Asa says, oh, no, that was your first message. Okay. And Corey says it's my rising sign. So I think that's the first house. Yes, absolutely. And Asa says that is 11th house. So that's kind of interesting then, Asa, that your personal chart is sort of a mirror image of what's going on with the solstice chart then, right? The 11th house is the house the moon will be in for the solstice. So I love that kind of synchronicity. So again, maybe you're finding your group, your community, your tribe in order to contribute your gifts to that particular group. TD Hawk, yes, have them get to work for us instead of the modern robber barons. So good for all existence when health and well-being is the priority instead of monetary profits. Here's the thing. I doubt seriously that that's going to be the emphasis of the people in power. I think what's going to happen is that we see that we're getting more of the same, but with an edginess to it. And then the people are going to rise up and say, no, 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 that is not what we want. We want this, right? We want healthcare to be affordable. We want the economy to be more affordable. We want our health to be considered. We want our environment to be considered. So I feel like we're not going to get that from the leaders. I think it's going to have to come from inside of the people and people taking their power back in a way that makes it known what we desire. And then I don't think that you get to just sit back and wait for leaders to do the work, because there's a distinctive self-reliance theme running through the energies, and it will be up to us to do it. I think our leaders are no longer dependable. They haven't been for a long time. What's different now is I think it is power to the people, meaning we are going to have to initiate the work that we want done, that we want to see in the world, which also means that we might have to change our own attitudes and our own beliefs about what's possible if we join together in a group and do the work. I know sometimes it feels kind of like, well, I don't know what I could do to change the healthcare industry. But people banding together absolutely have power to do that type of thing. And this is what I'm talking about. It's our responsibility to be the most self-reliant that we can be, because the government's in disarray. It's plain and simple. The governments of the world are kind of in this transformational thing. Remember, this is the time of the phoenix. I gave the word of the year yesterday, phoenixing. It's a word, it's a real word that is coming up in different circles where, it's this transformational time and everything is changing. And the only way to get through that change is to not look outside of you for help and support, but to hold it from within and then look around you and see, well, where is it that I can apply my energy for helping, supporting a cause or a belief, whatever it is that you want to do. So we're looking within, we're banding together as a group and becoming self-reliant. Self-sufficient would be another really good word, and not becoming so dependent on, let's say, a federal government to be there for us. It's just the way that things are going to be moving. So it's an interesting world we live in, and we're seeing it even in the astrology. Now, I was also looking at the sun. The sun in a solstice chart or a mundane chart like this would represent the leader of the country. And the leader of the country here is the sun in Capricorn, 0 degrees Capricorn, in the third house of the media, of communication, of rhetoric. Rhetoric is a word I would also use for what a leader would put into a third house sun. And there's a really interesting correlation here because it's also the sun in the third house in the Aries ingress chart if we look forward to the spring. So, interesting commonalities going on here between now and then. Also, I noted that the sun at 0 Capricorn is in a semi sextile. I'll get back to that in a second, with Pluto in Aquarius. So now we have two Saturn ruled signs side by side, Capricorn and Aquarius, with very important planets in the chart at 0 degrees, a critical degree, meaning potential. 0 degrees is about the potential for what we can create in that sign. So we have this potential for what could be expressed in Capricorn. Capricorn, a sign of getting down to business, right? The business of running the country from an information standpoint, a media standpoint, a transportation standpoint. The third house also rules commerce in a mundane chart. So trade, right? How we trade with other countries, how we trade within the country. And that means likely there's going to be new structures and new forms of trade. Well, we already know that's underway because there's this, banding around the word tariffs, right? That's going to change trade. And we see that very much in this chart for the solstice, but also in the chart for the spring equinox, or what I call the Aries ingress chart. So, common themes. Now let's talk about the semi sextile. It means that these planets are 30 degrees apart, right? And they are next door neighbors, if you will. They are not necessarily, they don't hold commonalities, but they work together. If they cooperate, then the neighborhood's peaceful. If they don't cooperate, then there's fighting, right? Or there's damage done, or there's incongruencies. There's frustration. So if the leader of the nation, being the sun in the third house, is in alignment with Pluto in Aquarius, that is in a destructive mind at the moment, destroying the old so that the new can be birthed, then we have a 3-month period of time where we can see some major transformations happening. And I do think that that's a potential, right? That there's going to be this, transformation. Now, is it in favor of the people or not? That remains to be seen. Remember, the leader has to cooperate with the people in this and not just pull up his authoritarian self and do whatever it is he wants to do. So, and we see it already, kind of funny, in the fight with the legislature right now over the budget. And are we going to shut down the government, or are we going to, make a deal? They thought they had a deal and they were all ready to do it. And then, the voices of the leaders were like, no, if you Republicans go for that deal, then we're going to make your life miserable. We want this deal instead. And now I just heard that that deal was turned down. So there's a lot of going back and forth. A la this chart, we see it. And it's literally going to have to be one where they consider the impact on the country. But we, as the people, have to understand that there may be some cuts involved here. This is Saturn territory, both these signs. And Saturn constricts, limits, forces, structures, and form. So the likelihood is that we're going to have to tighten our belts, right? Or in some way understand that these cuts have to be done in order to put us on a better footing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Saturn is in the sign of Pisces in the solstice chart and in the nation's 5th house, which means that creativity is a possibility. There might be some creative solutions that come up during this period of time. I wanted to see where Mars was because Mars represents the military. It represents the government itself, right? The operation, what the government does. And Mars is in retrograde in Leo. So it feels like the government's being stymied in their wanting to move forward. This is the 10th house, which would be the house of the government itself, right? The seat of the government. And yeah, so they have big ideas, big dreams, or big goals, but they're being stymied at this seasonal time. And that's because Mars is in retrograde in the sign in that house. So it feels a little bit like the foot on the brake, foot on the gas at the same time, where we're retreading, we're not really going anywhere fast. That does change at the equinox, however, so we might see something interesting there. Let's see. And then there is this very interesting pattern that I noted in this chart. I'm hoping you guys can see this. Yes, you can. So you see that is a grand square, and it's a mutable grand square, and it's made up from the moon, the people in the sign of Virgo, and Jupiter in Gemini over here. There's Gemini, and that is the education system, the big institutions like education, maybe even the health system. It is also, where there's optimism and so forth. And that is in a square to Saturn down there in Pisces. And Saturn is in a square to Mercury in Sagittarius. So a mutable square, right? And a grand square means there's a lot of tension. It's stabilized. No, it's changing tension. How can I describe this? This is tension that is ever present in these next 3 months in every place that you can think of, right? So in Gemini, where we have communication typically, where we have the internet, where we have information flow, it is tension from the people, right? The humans involved in all of this. This is tension in Mercury, which is out of retrograde at this time. So moving forward through territory he was already in Sagittarius, we're on a hunt for the truth, which means there could be a lot of misinformation that is out there as well that we have to deal with because that's squaring Saturn. And Saturn is really bringing up or bringing out the need for change in terms of the structures that we have built, um, bringing down walls and boundaries or instituting new boundaries. So boundary lines are changing, blurring, um, and there's tension in all of that. So there's a lot of tension built into this Capricorn ingress or winter solstice chart. Um, Now, how does that play out for you all as individuals? Well, you're also going to have this mutable square, grand square, showing up in your own chart. So you'd have to look to where Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces are. Those are the mutable signs, and mutable equals changing, right? Changing signs, flexible, being adaptable. And it just feels like this is, all of us having to be able to, change and morph and, move through these changes because they'll also be impacting your own personal life in whatever space that they are in your chart. So that might be a longer conversation, perhaps better, resolved in a session where we look at some of these things for the season in your astrology chart. All right. Any questions? Let's see here. Good morning, Peggy and Christine. Good to have you. And Julie, good to see you out there. Cuts to regular Americans' programs to extend a huge tax break to oligarchs and corporations is unfair and wrong. Yes, it is, right? It is, which is where your voice comes in, right? We can't expect that oligarchs and plutocrats are billionaires, plutocrats, billionaires, interchangeable word, are going to have our best interests at heart. So this is where our interaction comes in, right? This is where the people have the power because without our voices, they'll just do whatever it is that's in their best interest. that's kind of human nature even, right? So I'm not saying that as a way to blame, people, or blame the leaders, but the leaders are going to do what they do based on what's best for them until we rise up and we do something about it, right? We do it with our vote, we do it with our money, we do it with our voices. So it is now turning out that we are the ones that have to not just mindlessly sit on our phones, doing, BS stuff all day long. No, we're going to actually have to get involved, right? If you want something to change, you're going to have to band together with other people of like mind to bring about those changes, to have your voice be heard. So again, you know, if we don't say anything and if we don't do anything, then the leaders will just do whatever it is that they're doing. They'll just keep doing, right? So we have to stop that. We have to interact with that. All right. Um, Chester's mom. Amen. Yep, indeed. And yeah, there are going to be lots of things like that I think we see, at least in this initial few years of Pluto in Aquarius, that are just going to turn our stomachs, that are just going to turn life upside down. But that is what happened when Pluto moved into Capricorn in most recent history, when Pluto, the master of destruction, moves into a new sign. He really kind of undermines, or exposes, let's put it that way, what's rotten in the sign or in the energies of that sign. When he moved into Capricorn, he was like showing us all of the institutional no-nos, the big institutions, the banking system, the mortgage system, all those things began crashing not long after Pluto moved into Capricorn. And now that we have Pluto in Aquarius, we're being seen where it's being shown to us where people have been lackadaisical, where we've just been sort of participating in our government very much like this instead of being all in. So, and that's evidenced when you really look at what do people really know? What do our kids know about our government? Right? What do our kids know about the Constitution? Do they even know the Constitution? And then as adults, when we go to vote, do we really understand how this democracy works? I mean, we have this very superficial thing because we're just not that interested. Not all of you and not all of us, but on a grander scheme, we're going to have to lose that disinterest, and we're going to have to become much more interested and much more activated in the things that we do in terms of banding people together to do things that, to say what it is that we want done. And yeah, exactly. Colleen, that's probably exactly the best thing to say. It will get worse before it gets better, but we can't get discouraged. Good, good point. Our voices must be heard. Indeed. Keep using your voice. Christine, a true leader does try their best to help the people they are supposed to serve. That's the ideal, right? A politician who does not serve the people is not a leader. So right. So take that expectation. All of you who are listening, take that expectation of what we want from leadership or what we want from our leaders, and expose where it is out of alignment with that, and not just be complicit in it. Or, and complicit, I don't mean that you're participating in it, but your very non-participation is participation, right? You're just not doing anything. So it's a challenge for all of us. I think it's laying down the gauntlet and saying, okay, what do you want out of this country? Or what do you want out of your life? Or whatever nation you're in? What do you want? And to, band together with the people that have like thinking and make those demands heard. And, their power to the people. We just haven't realized how much power we really have, but we will. That's the promise of Pluto's transit through Aquarius, is that the playing field becomes much more equal, that, equal voices, shared leadership, right? So big changes on the horizon like that, but likely difficulty. There's always difficulty in the beginning of a new transit. And I think that's what we'll be seeing. And things may be very exaggerated for a while, right? That it seems like it's right in our faces. And we may not know what to do. And there can be, conflict that gets raised in that. But just remember, keep yourself and your spiritual self in the clear, keep yourself centered, keep your heart. Remember, Neptune is sitting at 25, the gate of spirit, the gate that aligns us with unconditional love and universal love, and is powerful when we remember the divine in all of our interactions. So, boom, we got that. Okay. Chester's mom, I pray the people we did not elect who are not trustworthy are held to account in some way. It always happens, right? It does in the end. Karma bites the butt, and Saturn is that karma. And remember, Saturn, well, you might not remember unless you were here with me yesterday. Saturn's moving into Aries this year, and so is Neptune. And the nodes have just left, are just leaving Aries, and there's this sense that it's going to take some boldness on all of our parts to turn the country around, to be able to take those next steps. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, but we can do it. I have faith. I have faith in America and in countries around the world that the people will step up and say, not in our reality, right? We want this instead. Kiki, I'm really glad because it's taken me a while to feel better about this whole thing too. And that's what perspective gives us, right? We always seem to, as human beings, we have this sort of knee jerk reaction to things that are happening. And then hopefully, sanity returns. We smooth out a little bit. We get perspective. We distance, right? Or we raise our perspective to a higher view. And then we see things with different eyes and we calm down. And while I want to remain calm in terms of not overreacting to any of the BS that goes on, I do want to stay focused on creating what I want. And that is a world of peace, of plenty for everyone, of equality, where everyone's voice is heard and where we are not so polarized. I think that's something huge for all of us to try to get to, but I know we can do it. Okay. Julie, I have faith too. I love it. I hated how I didn't trust the divine after November 5th. Oh yes, but please don't beat yourself up because I didn't. I I nearly left the world of broadcasting astrology because I was so upset. Because the vision I hold is so different from what happened. And I couldn't I just couldn't understand how I could be so wrong and how, the worst thing that could happen to this country happened. But maybe it isn't the worst thing that happened, right? Maybe it would have been worse if we just kept on doing the same old, same old. And, someone coming in that can give us perspective from another side might show us exactly how that's not what we want either. And we don't want this either. So, how do we, move to the center? That's the part that was remaining to be seen. So, but we will get there. And again, this is, I'm speaking mostly about what's happening here or what's happened here in this country, but it's happening all over the world, right? All the different countries are going through these different things. And there is this potential for peace. And if you were at the webinar yesterday, the very closing that I did was something called a magic triangle. It was called it's a minor grand square, or I mean, a minor grand trine. And that's activated from 2025 through 2028 with the planets Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune, those three outer planets. That has not happened. I was listening to one astrologer and she said she never did find where in history it happened. And somebody else chimed in and said it was over 12,000 years ago that this particular thing happened. And I'm getting just chill bumps thinking about this because it's the it's the beautiful peace that we deserve, that we get when we go through this chaos, when we get through all of the things that may happen over these next few years, beginning in 2025. And yet, so it was like this big banner of hope. I actually want to turn it into a flag now that I think about it. Um, Asa will turn it into a t-shirt. That's what we'll do with this because it's so hopeful, because it holds the promise of a golden opportunity for a golden age, for a different time. I don't know that that happens in my lifetime, but if it does, it'll be because we participated in it, right? We participated in bringing out the highest and the best for humanity, for all. Such lofty ideals, right? Um, and Tina says, it's the yin and the yang that must exist. Right, exactly. T-shirt is great, Julie says. All right, Asa, let's get to work on it. And we will need those miracles. Indeed, we will. And there are miracles, right? And the miracles happen when you're looking for the miracle. When you are expecting the beauty, when you're expecting the awesome, when you're expecting the magnificent. That's what you get. You see the miracle. Even though, there's chaos or there's turbulence, there's crisis, there's war, there's whatever going on, we're still holding that miracle in our minds, right? We're still holding that in our hearts. We're still aligning ourselves emotionally with that instead of whatever it is that we see, right? So again, it comes back to us to be responsible for ourselves, right? And as we move into this tumultuous time, right? And we've already been in tumultuous times. So I think we already have an idea of how to move through this, but it's staying in the peace within yourself and looking for ways in which you can contribute your voice, your genius to the world. All right. Now, and the power of prayer. There, we got that. I have this book that I just put on my shelf here the other day, the dynamic laws of prayer. Right, it's such a great book by Catherine Ponder, and it's a little dated. Right, this was written, at an earlier time, but I found it to be very soothing. Okay, let's go on to reimagining the zodiac, and today we're going to look at Capricornia. The sun moving into Capricorn is moving the sun, a masculine symbol, moving into feminine territory. So I want us to kind of rewrite, if you will, or reimagine, restructure, reform this idea of what Capricorn energy is all about. So if we look, I'm just going to read you the myth of Capricornia. Guardian of legacy and keeper of the mountain path. In the myth of Capricornia, she is known as the great matriarch of the earth, a figure of unwavering resilience who embodies the wisdom and strength of the natural world. Her realm stretches from the sea's depths to the mountain's peak, symbolizing her mastery over both inner emotional currents and external accomplishments. Capricornia is the sea goat, a creature of both water and earth, connected to the cycles of nature and the enduring climb towards self-mastery and legacy. From a young age, Capricornia is drawn to the mountain path, sensing its challenge, but understanding it as a journey of growth rather than conquest. She learns that the true power of achievement lies not in reaching the summit alone, but in leaving a trail for others to follow. Capricornia is a builder, yet her creations go beyond mere structures. She crafts legacies, nurturing dreams that can withstand time and guide future generations. She embodies patience, knowing that growth requires seasons and that roots must sink deep before anything can flourish. In her journey, Capricornia wields a sacred scythe, symbolizing her connection to the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. She is unafraid of endings, viewing them as part of the natural order and opportunities for new beginnings. With her scythe, she clears away what is no longer necessary, creating space for sustainable growth. She doesn't impose or force change, rather, she guides it, embodying a nurturing authority that encourages organic evolution. Capricornia achieves her goals through disciplined care, intuitive wisdom, and a deep respect for the Earth's rhythms. Her power is rooted in authenticity. She knows that only through honesty with herself and others can true integrity be cultivated. In her world, success isn't about accolades or recognition, but about leaving a meaningful impact. She doesn't seek to possess, but to steward, understanding her life as a thread in the greater tapestry of creation. In her role as a guide, Capricornia teaches others the value of persistence, grounded ambition, and patience. She shows that strength isn't rigid but adaptable, like the mountains that bend with the shifting earth yet stand tall through the ages. Capricornia is both protector and nurturer, honoring the sacred duty of creating a foundation upon which others may build. Capricornia's journey is one of timeless wisdom and dedication. Her story reminds us that true power lies not in what we achieve alone, but in the legacies we nurture, the lives we touch, and the authenticity with which we live. She is the mother of resilience, the guardian of legacy, and the keeper of the mountain path, guiding all who seek lasting fulfillment to trust in the steady ascent of self discovery and purposeful growth. Can you feel the difference in this mythology? Truly an inspired story. And this turns this Capricorn idea of institutions and government and military and ruthless corporation stuff on its head, puts it in a new light, gives us, I don't know, heart in a sign that is typically seen as all business, right? It's an earth sign. So in rewriting this mythology, we get a new picture of what's possible. Right? The mythology itself is distinctly masculine if you look at different stories about, Capricorn and how the sea goat came to be in the sky and all of that, which I don't want to go into today. But um, in this story, in this myth, you see something bigger at work, something that I felt like I could really sink um, my teeth into, if you will, that I could really find the heart to heart connection in. And remember, there's even the new picture of Capricornia with her scythe, but also the vessel of birth, the vessel of something new, that vessel holding the light, the legacy of what can be. So, in a reimagined mythology of Capricornia, she's the guardian of the mountain and the sea, guarding legacies, bringing people together in powerful ways. Um, and I think someday I do want to go into the old myths, but not today. Because today I really want to know, first of all, I want to know how you feel about that as a new mythology, right? Because the stories that we have through myths and through astrology, it's just about 12 different myths, right? Different stories. They're very powerful in creating our reality. Um, and not on a one-to-one sort of basis, but if we change a myth, we change a story, and the story changes in how we see the world. And in this case, what we're doing is we're just righting the ship here to show that this is a sign that has much more feminine potential than what it's generally been given, right? So we are changing the story. And when we change the story, the outer world begins to change, right? And now I want you to look for evidence of a new Capricornian myth that's being born. I want you to watch for words like legacy. I want you to watch for words like integrity, for group thinking or groups of people coming together. I want you to look for that. And then we also have to look at Saturn. This is my favorite part of this whole thing because Saturn has been the traditional ruler of Capricorn forever, right? And Saturn has always been depicted as a masculine figure, the god of structure and form with his scythe, right? And his scythe is ready to just cut you down and kill you and send you to the underworld and all of that. So Saturn's influence over Capricorn has meant things like discipline and structure, and then encouraging, patience and perseverance and all of that. Saturn, as the god Kronos in Roman mythology, was the god of time. And that aligns also with Capricorn's focus on legacy and achievement and creating something lasting and resilience and endurance. Saturn is embodying the strength to face hardships, mirroring Capricorn's enduring, determined nature. So then the question becomes, is Saturn suitable as a ruling planet for Capricornia, for the new myth? So I looked first at alternatives and then I rewrote Saturn for Capricorn. So alternative potentials were Vesta, the hearth goddess, right? She was the Roman goddess of the hearth. She represented sacred duty, community, and enduring purpose. And Vesta, as a feminine character, embodies the quiet strength that comes from devotion, that comes from, home and family. And she also would fit along with the Capricornia nurturing qualities, right? That we talked about, the wisdom, the tending to life over time, right? Sustaining life, being a good steward for the earth, that kind of thing. So she could be a fitting ruler for Capricornia as a matriarchal and sort of earthy energy. There's also Pallas Athena. She's the goddess of wisdom and strategy. And in essence, Pallas was she was the goddess of wisdom, strategy. She embodied a balanced approach to power that sort of combined the intellect and wisdom and creative strategy. So she's a protector, and she protects knowledge. She protects the underdogs. She's an advocate for justice. So she might be a good fit, especially with her blend of strategic thinking and her wisdom. It could support a Capricornia guide. It could be her presence could bring a balanced nature to the sign that is out of balance at this moment. Um, then there's Ceres, the mother goddess, the nurturer. She's the goddess of agriculture. She was the goddess of Earth's natural cycles as the mother of Persephone. And she was associated with nurturing and growth and the balance between creation and release, the balance between the time of spring and summer's, effervescence and the fall and winter's dying energy, regenerative energies. So that kind of fits. I don't know that either of those three fit exactly, but I kind of like them. I think we should consider the possibilities that those guides or that those goddesses could be the Capricornian ruler. But what if we reimagined Saturn? Right? Saturn as the ruler of the sign of Capricorn, it would bring maybe a profound shift to the traditional symbolism of Saturn, embracing the strength of cycles instead and of the wisdom through nurturing and nurturing yet powerful hand of time and staying the long for the long haul, staying the course of something. And here's what Saturn would look like as a divine feminine figure ruling the sign of Capricornia. Okay, and this is where it's going to get a little weird. So, Saturn as the divine feminine archetype would be the keeper of life's rhythms. Rather than the rigid patriarchal enforcer of limitations, Saturn becomes the wise mother of time, guiding the sort of natural ebb and flow of the cycles, the flow of life. And then with deep respect for the cycles and the seasons, she would embody acceptance and growth. She would also embody decay and renewal as a natural part of the cycle, teaching that all stages of life hold value. And the role as Capricornia's ruler would be to help us honor time as a creative force that nurtures rather than as a strict boundary that we have to be confined to. All right, that's one part that would change. What if we looked at her as the guardian of legacy and tradition? So, in her feminine form, Saturn would encourage a nurturing approach to legacy building. Rather than the legacy being of billionaires building, going to Mars, doing, grand things, it would be one that fosters sustainable growth, one that passes wisdom down through generations about how we are good stewards of, or stewards of ourselves, of our world, of our environment, of each other. She would help Capricornia see that true legacy comes not from control, but from carefully tending to what endures. She would value traditions that serve a purpose and willingly lets go of those that no longer support growth, embodying a matriarchal wisdom that treasures both heritage and adaptability. Nurturing structure and endurance. The feminine Saturn is the guide who patiently tends to growth with enduring dedication that fosters resilience through self care, through patience and inner stability. Instead of imposing discipline for the sake of control, she fosters inner structure, helping us to understand boundaries as protective, as supportive, nurturing forces rather than limiting ones. She teaches that most enduring growth happens slowly and with care, much like a tree rooted deeply into the earth. That didn't happen overnight, right? Took time to dig those roots deep. Saturn is the divine feminine. It represents the womb of potential and renewal. As a divine feminine figure, Saturn becomes the archetype of the cosmic crone, the wise elder who understands the mysteries of life and death, the creation and destruction energies. Her scythe becomes a symbol not just of endings, but of clearing space for renewal. Hmm. Mirroring Capricornia's acceptance of cycles and natural transformation. In this form, Saturn encourages us to find power in letting go and trusting that every ending carries a seed for new growth. And Saturn, as the divine feminine archetype, could be the mother of inner authority. Rather than reinforcing external rules, the feminine Saturn teaches us to cultivate inner authority and self respect. She encourages Capricornia to embody her power from within, honoring her own wisdom and guiding others to do the same. Not you taking on my wisdom, but you sharing your wisdom. As a ruler, she supports Capricornia's role as a guide to self mastery, not through force, but through self trust, through resilience, and authentic purpose. So, in this form, Saturn could be depicted as a cloaked, ageless matriarch, holding both a scythe and the sacred vessel, which is the instruction that I gave to ChatGPT in drawing that image. And her presence is calm, it's grounded, it's deeply wise, embodying the patience and quiet authority that only time can grant, right? So, how does she guide Capricornia then? This feminine Saturn would actually support Capricornia in creating lasting, meaningful legacies by embracing the natural rhythms and cycles of time, of what truly matters to us, right? The ebbs and the flows, the tidal forces. She helps Capricornia move beyond ambition for ambition's sake, guiding her toward goals that honor inner values and the greater good. So, under Saturn's divine feminine influence, Capricornia learns that true achievement is rooted in patience, respect for time, and harmonious relationship with the world's natural rhythms. And in this reimagining of as Saturn as the divine feminine, we bring a profound earthy wisdom to Capricornia, guiding her as a nurturing force for stability and resilience and authentic power. You got to tell me, doesn't that feel so much better? Doesn't that give you a better feel for the potential of Saturn, right? And we could, address a whole lot of other issues here. Um, because there are also shadow energies apparent in this. I don't want to, just make it all beautiful. It is beautiful, but there's always going to be the shadow energies as well. Even if we reimagine Saturn, just as I just described, there's going to be shadows, right? The potential for over responsibility and self sacrifice, perhaps rigidity and resistance to change, like digging in the hoofs, right? The feet holding on tight. Maybe there could be judgment and overcritical ness that comes up, right, in judging others who aren't aligned with those cycles. Maybe there is a fear of vulnerability and of being self-reliant, right? I think there is a fear that we have naturally of being that way. And maybe controlling natural processes could be a shadow energy. Um, surrendering control and trusting in life's rhythms is something I think that we all fight, right? We are always on the hunt for eternal youth, even as we're aging. That's just one way that the shadow of time plays out. So there you guys go. Some great things to think about, to, take in and, put it together in a way that, you can embody this as a new myth. There's plenty of time for Saturn to be the masculine in Aquarius, which is a masculine sign. So we can add the feminine goddess asteroids and put them in, to the myth, um, or we can rewrite, as I did, Saturn to be Saturnia or to be more feminine. Um, it's up to you, right? They all embody this new idea, this new concept of what the potential for Capricorn in this reimagined way as Capricornia could bring for all of us. So, all right. Let's see. Any last questions? FSS and Ponder, good books. Oh, okay. Yeah, the prayer. There's one for prosperity too, I believe. She probably has others. Pallas, Christine says, is a protector of animals and the innocent. She is a brave warrior who avoids war through wisdom and diplomacy. We need more of that, definitely. Definitely, definitely. All right. Kiki Law, I'm Capricorn Aquarius, which I don't understand. Um, Kiki, maybe you can join us another day and we can talk through that a bit. You're saying maybe the sun is in Capricorn on the cusp of Aquarius, maybe? And that's it. All right. I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation today. And I will be on air on Monday. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much. Bye for now.